the end of a deep suffering, and an all-too-human mouth gasped and gulped at the air, pinkish gills fluttering in an increasingly transparent neck. The long, and now bleaching body beneath the face was that of a seahorse. The spiny tail flicked hopelessly in the sand. Cleo let forth a sob, and wished, madly, to crush this delicate head with a rock to end its misery. But her own pursuers had drawn closer, and now seemed to be leaning over their rocky perches and hissing as her panic and weariness increased. The way ahead was barred by the mottled trunk or appendage, white spotted by disease that had been flung up the beach from the great dead bulk at the shoreline. Cleo's belief that her attempt to escape in any direction would be futile was horribly complemented by an instinctive assurance that her end in the sand would not come easy. And among the corpses on the beach, and amidst the audible splinterings of bone behind the sea wall of rubble, she understood that in this place, this was the way of things. Her realization of such was the worst thing of all. Cleo shivered awake. Her face was wet. She'd been talking in her sleep too, or crying out. A sore throat attested to that. She nearly wept with relief as her familiarity with the living room interior slowly returned. Some parts of the room remained strange and were not a part of her home, at least not part of the home that she could recall. Maybe tomorrow these features and objects would be recognizable, and bring comfort rather than anxiety. Another 20-degree night. Cleo drank water from the teat of a closed cup sat upon the tray attached to her easy chair. Once she'd calmed herself with 2 anti-anxiety tablets, she turned on the media service and watched the world fall apart on a screen. 5th refugee ship intercepted by Italian Navy in 3 days. Thousands confirmed dead, no survivors. Night vision footage in a late live broadcast was beamed from the Mediterranean. The Italian Navy had found another ship. The metal walls inside the drifting vessel were predictably and somehow functionally the terrible gray that Cleo associated with war at sea or maritime disaster. Pipes traversed a low ceiling studded with rivets. Paint bubbled with rust. Dust glittered and drifted through darkness as if it were plankton in a sunken wreck. As the moving camera panned through the greenish air, a moth's frantic capering was lit up. Immobile forms haphazardly covered the lower deck. They created a lumpen procession that reached out of sight. Blankets, exposed limbs, discarded sandals, disparate piles of baggage, and the pale soles of feet that had walked so many miles to reach that ship, but would never walk again. The far end of the wide space was a void. A figure moved into view. Bulky, too upright. It emerged slowly like an astronaut in zero gravity. A CDC or military scientist encased in a protective biosuit, carrying an equipment bag. Another 2 men appeared, identically dressed in unventilated suits attached to hoses, waddling cautiously through the jade umbra, their faces gray and undefined behind transparent masks. They too carried plastic crates. All were being filmed by a 4th figure with a camera attached to a helmet. There were quick close-ups of swollen black and brown faces, eyes open and bloodshot, the mouths crimson slices through which ochre-filmed teeth grimaced. Long-necked, his expression a rictus chiseled from agony. One man opened his jaws wide in a close-up, as if his last act was to scream at death itself. Beside him, a mother clutched a motionless child in a papoose. The small head of the child was turned away as if afraid of the camera. Most of the dead faced the floor, suggesting the life they had departed was unbearable to look back upon, even once. The footage cut to exterior shots of a large, antique merchant freighter, glutted with tributaries of corrosion, the white bridge lightless, a vessel adrift. Flares lit the water red. PT boats and a frigate circled at a distance while white searchlights fixed the vessel as if it were a specimen on the black surface of the sea.